Hello everyone, it's me, it's Clayton. I just got back from earlier tonight seeing Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice. And let me tell you, this has been one very polarizing film. The film received a lot of negative attention when it came to its trailers, and the critical reviews that have come out on Rotten Tomatoes have been considered atrocious. I mean, their reviews are in the low 30s at this point. And that's lower than Batman Forever, the original Man of Steel, and they're nearing Superman 3 levels of bad. And I was just saying, geez, it's worse than those? And let me tell you, the critics are not getting the point. I actually liked Batman vs. Superman, despite all of my problems with it. Now, here's the thing. The film does have some serious flaws, and before any of you guys tell me that this film is terrible in comparison to the Marvel films, I would say you would be right. I don't think this movie is as good as the Avengers, or even as good as some of the standalone Marvel films like Iron Man and Ant-Man. Though I would argue it's better than the Thor films and Iron Man 2, but that's besides the point. The film does have some serious flaws. The film's plot is very incoherent. Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg, is completely out of character and cannot be taken seriously at any point in this film. And the film does the Amazing Spider-Man 2 thing of putting in too much of its story to build up to other sequels, instead of focusing on the story that matters. But anyways, let's get to my actual review. The story for this film revolves around the ending of Man of Steel. And due to the collateral damage and the many civilian casualties that resulted from the ending of Man of Steel, Bruce Wayne, played by Ben Affleck, believes that Superman is a threat to humanity. And he's not alone. A lot of people are against Superman because of what happened, including a senator named Finch, played by Holly Hunter, and the evil Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg. Batman seeks to take down Superman in order to prevent any more innocents from dying, as well as protect his people and his empire. And Superman, still being a naive hero rather than the God Savior Jesus figure that everyone thinks he is, has to learn how to accept what happened as they both go into a fight to the death. Yes, it's Son of Krypton versus Dark Knight of Gotham. And meanwhile, while all that happens, turns out Lex Luthor is making a plan, a very convoluted one, might I add, to rid the city of all of the heroes and to take over Metropolis. Not to mention we also have cameo appearances from Wonder Woman, Cyborg, Flash, and Aquaman. I am not kidding. So the story, even though I liked parts of it, is very incoherent. There's just so much story and so many characters jump in and jump out haphazardly with little overall narrative. The main plot, however, does pay homage to two of my favorite graphic novels. Those being The Death of Superman and The Dark Knight Returns. And if you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. Personally, one of the things that I liked about the film was Ben Affleck as Batman. This version of Batman is pretty much exactly the one you'd get if you combine the Batmans of The Killing Joke and Dark Knight Returns, the ones written by Frank Miller and Alan Moore. He's a more brutal Batman. He doesn't have the no-kill rule. Well, they never say he doesn't, but if you've seen the film, he does not have the no-kill rule in mind. He is driven, he is old, he will do anything to set things right in Gotham, and it's really amazing to see that kind of Batman finally portrayed on screen. Henry Cavill as Superman, I also thought he was great. His acting has improved quite a bit since Man of Steel, in my opinion. He's a lot less wooden. And Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, here's the thing. They try to make him funny and threatening, but he succeeds at neither. He's just way too awkward and way too poorly written for me to take the guy seriously. And there are a ton of other characters in this film, such as Senator Finch, Lois Lane, Martha Kent, etc., 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 but a lot of them have their own mini-stories that don't really connect into a succinct whole. In fact, that's one of my main problems with the film. The film has an incoherent story, treats a lot of characters with very little purpose. For example, Martha and Lois seem to only exist to be rescued. Lawrence Fishburne's Perry White just exists to be the mean boss that he was in the comics. There's nothing new to him. The cameos of the Flash, Aquaman, and Cyborg, they're just cameos that I think should have been reserved for an end credits scene, but there is no end credits scene, so when the credits roll, you don't have to stay there till the end. The one DC hero other than Batman vs. Superman, however, that does get a bit of screen time and that I did love seeing was Wonder Woman. Though if you've seen what she just done in the trailers, you probably know where she finally comes in. But when she finally comes in, it leads to one of my favorite parts of this film. I mean, one thing that I did appreciate, and I know it appeals to the inner man-child in me, but it should appeal to the inner man-child in you, are the fight sequences. The fights in this movie feel so much like an actual comic book. And it's clear that Zack Snyder, in a fashion similar to his filmmaking styles of Watchmen and 300, clearly knows how to shoot a film like it's a live-action comic book. I mean, yes, there's lots of CGI. Yes, his slow motion is a little overbearing, but it was able to create shot for shot scenes from various comics in the DC universe, to the point where I was overwhelmed with how much research that guy must have done to get some of these shots in. Not to mention the fact that even though there's a lot of CGI used, I personally think the CGI wasn't as bad as the critics said it is. When you're given these characters and you're forcing them to, act like how they are in the comics, and their powers in the comics can go to pure insanity when it comes to how, deadly they are, you need to use a lot of CGI. There sometimes isn't a lot of room for practical effects. I mean, just look at the Marvel movies. The ending of the Avengers has so much CGI that it's insane, but nobody cares. You're just enjoying the mayhem. It's the same idea with the climax here. When Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman come together to fight you-know-who from the trailer, it is a CGI fest. It is an eyesore for people who don't like it, but for people like me, we love seeing our favorite heroes square off against an impossible threat that could spell annihilation for all that we know. We're not craving dark, horrible things like maniacs. We're seeing three incredible people fight against those dark, horrible things. That's why we enjoy these things. And so many critics fail to recognize that. So I agree with almost all of their complaints, but I don't care. This film was hit with a negative buzz right from the get-go, so I was just surprised that they were able to release a film of this caliber at all. Yes, the story's incoherent. Yes, some of the characters could have been saved for other movies instead of being crammed into this one like they did in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And yes, I personally think that some of the scenes of the film are sort of boring, sort of unnecessary, and I could have skipped them, and I would have left them on the editing room floor. But it is a love letter to DC Comics, and I do appreciate it. So, with all of that being said, do I still recommend that you go see this film? Yes. Please see this film, because honestly, I want to see this DC universe happen. I want to see Suicide Squad. I want to see Wonder Woman. I want to see Cyborg. I want to see Flash. I want to eventually see Green Lantern if they're planning on it. So, yeah. It's sort of a mixed review from me, but I think a 7 out of 10 is one that's a right rating for this. It's not the greatest superhero film of all time, but it's also not an absolute train wreck, but like most of the critics say it is. I consider it to be good. So think for yourselves, go and see it, and get lost in either awesomeness or disorientation. I'll see you later.